at what point do you start to remember, or I'm not even sure how it comes to you that you had all these past lives? I think you said 72 or 73
Oh,
in the past. What at what point, at what age, and what brought that on? Did all that kind of start to occur?
so I read a book called The Book of Mastery. Is a channeled book. Do you know what channeling is?
Yes.
So it's a channel book by Paul Selig. I highly recommend reading them. And so a book, and I was 29. I was 29 years old. I started reading it. Actually, no, I was right before. I was actually no. It was right when I turned 30. I was actually, yeah, I was actually. I think it was after I turned literally. Somewhere along across the line of my 30th birthday, which is actually the age, the minimum age of a woman's spiritual awareness. So you cannot be younger than 30 and remember yourself as a being in the universe. Like you just can't be spiritually awakened until you're 30. And for males, it's 35, or sometimes 40. Actually, I want to say 40, but because males have a lot harder time with that. But so I read this book, and I mean it's a powerful book, and it just started vibrating all kind. My body kind of started vibrating differently, and I was just, I mean, the things that they said in this book was like, I don't know, it is magic. It's that's all I can say. The beings the spirits who channel who dictate the book to Paul Selig. They deny that there's magic, but I'm telling you, there's magic in those books. And then the Book of Truth was the second book, and then the Book of Truth is the book that I was reading. And then yeah, so the Book of Mastery, the Book of Truth, and then so yeah, like I said, I was 30, so I was driving on the highway as about the time after the time that I read the Book of Mastery, and I was on the Book of Truth, and I was driving down the highway, and I was like, oh yeah, I was Albert Einstein. And I remember, so it was actually kind of weird. So I actually just bought a book on Albert Einstein's pictures, and that was a really strange thing to me for me to do because I had never been interested in Albert Einstein. I never even knew who the guy was or what he did. It's just all I knew was the name. And so, but I bought two books. I bought from this from the I don't from a I think from a thrift shop, a thrift shop, and so one was it's like very, it's like maroon, had a bunch of pictures of Albert Einstein in it, and I remember actually it's the only book I had on my in the back of my bed, and so I had at this time I had a bed with a little bookshelf at the headboard, and so I set it in that, and then I went on a road trip, and then I brought that book with me, and that's how I was like, oh, that's how I was driving on the highway. And I was like, oh yeah, I was Albert Einstein. And then and then so here's a story of remembering that I was Albert. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was nuts. I was begging my spirit guides. I was like somebody. I'm not. I wasn't even really connected to my spirit guides at the time, but I was begging something. I was like out there. I was like, so I ended up going to a past life regressionist because, and I said, I think I'm crazy. I think because there's somebody that who was like, I could not. I didn't say something anything like to the fact that I could not have been, but I was essentially, which is what I was saying when I think I'm crazy. So I said I want to do this past life regression because I think I'm crazy and I want to see if I can connect to that life. So we did it, and I did connect to that life. And I remembered something. I remembered looking in the mirror. I remember something I said. So when I was Albert, I remember saying, "If I can create it, I can uncreate it." And then I remember I said my name Mark, who I don't talk about Maleva.
Yeah.
So anyways, and then I was like, well, yeah, okay. So I was Albert Einstein, and then I read up on Albert Einstein. I read about the bombs, and all of a sudden I remembered walking around my last 10 years of life, absolutely tragicized. My heart was just a missionless. I mean, it was devastating. I was devastated by those atomic bombs. I felt like I murdered 400,000 people. I felt like I was responsible for murdering 400,000 beautiful Japanese people. That I used to be the Empress of Japan, and like the and and I was just like, So that was really hard. So I went from remembering I was crazy, I'm thinking I was crazy, to the guilt that I felt, and then I remember I felt like I was like when I was so I had heard that if you walk around in the where you lived in a past life, then you'll remember your energy systems, your energy. And I went to Princeton. I visited Princeton, and that's exactly what happened. I was walking around in the street in the roads in Princeton, and I remembered like the way so I treated my wives like shit, and I was like I sat down on a bench, and I was like Albert Einstein was a bad man. Albert Einstein was a bad man, and I felt like a horrible like. I mean,
So you actually feel the pain as well as good stuff from these past lives as well.
I don't have very many good memories about in my past lives, but yeah, so like, and so I was just like, I don't know why everybody's celebrating Albert Einstein. I was a bad man, and
Well, he did some good things too. There's a lot of stuff that we have
it's
that are
taken me
based on.
it's taken me many years to see that. I guess I was actually a very, very, very good, kind, loving man, and I did everything for this world, everything.
Plus, it's like somebody, whoever invented like toilet cleaner, you could kill somebody with that. So they didn't invent it to kill; they just invented it to clean toilets. So
Thank you for that. Actually, thank you very much for that.
right. So somebody else did something with your Einstein's invention from your
So
previous life. So
you know what I was thinking? Actually, it could end up being a saving grace, a Hail Mary. So if there's anything, so if anything ever happens in this world where the people, sorry, if there anything ever happens in this world where like, so say, I mean, I had this kind of premonition of everybody going blind at the same time, which would be, imagine if everybody was, so the disease came out and everybody's about to go blind, or everybody goes blind. So we actually might need to actually have an escape. And so then all those nuclear weapons could be held up in Australia, because Australia is the dump ground. So I'm sorry, but that's where we should hold it. So here's my order. I mean, I don't know if I can order. So I think if anybody makes all these, yeah. So anyway, but we could just blow it all up with these nuclear weapons, right? So if anything happens like that, we could just save ourselves, and so we wouldn't have to be living torture for like until we starve to die, we die of starving death. And so I remember my last. This is the thing I really was like. So I remember I was dying. I was on my deathbed as Albert. And I remember I kind of like saw everything blowing up, and I was like, it's my fault. And I said, my last thought before I died was, I failed the world. I failed the world. I mean, I promise you guys, when I was Albert, I did everything for this world. I literally was I made my two wives sign contracts to not talk to me because I was so busy. Like, I'm so figuring my equations were everything, and the things that I was thinking about, and how do you, I swear to God, well, I did everything for this world. That's all I wanted this world to be, was a beautiful place. And I worked my heart out to do, I mean, my E equals MC squared was, I have a, I don't know, but, and so I failed the world. So I was like, how do you go from, I don't know, from going to, I mean, the opposite of wanting to fail the world to, I mean, literally, my goal is eudaimonia is my goal. I was Aristotle as well, so Aristotle was very thrived on eudaimonia. I'm so sorry for being emotional with you, dude.